Channel Nady the Coder. Today we're gonna get started on React Query. We're gonna learn about React Query, how we can query data with React Query, and what are the tools or libraries that we need to install in order to use React Query. So first thing first, we're gonna need React for that. So we're gonna create our application based on React. So this is the official website that you can get React from. Second thing that you need is basically the node environment. Basically, if you want to run your React application, so you're gonna need this. So make sure that you install it as well. I'm on macOS, so based on your operating system, it will give you the preferred download version of the node environment. The third thing that we need to install is basically the React Query library itself, and we're gonna make use of it. You'll see this in a minute. And also we're going to be using a JSON placeholder. This is basically a fake API that we can make a call to, and we'll get some response based on our request. So we don't have an actual backend over here, but just a mockup that we want to access through the React Query library, and we'll see how we can deal with this. It's just going to be a very first example that we're going to go with this, but in the later videos we'll come up with a full-fledged project. We're going to be creating a to-do application or any other suggestions. If you have, you can just comment it down and we'll just create that small application based on React Query. So yeah, let's just get started. So first of all, first thing first, I'll just open my terminal. This is my terminal, and first thing first, I'll just check for my node version. In order to check for node version, you just have to type node and then space, and then you can type in -v or -- version. So basically, there's this tool that I'm using for this beautiful drop-down that gives you some suggestions based on the directory you are in. If you really want to use this, just go ahead and search for Fig, and you'll get this over here, fig.io, and you can just download it for your terminal, and it will work on your machine as well. So this is a really powerful tool that I'm using since a long time, so it's really useful for me. So yeah, let's get back to it. So I'm on node version 14.15, and also I want to now create a React application. So for that, first of all, I'll just go to my desktop, and here I'll just create a directory. I'll call it React Query demo. All right, okay, I think that's fine. And I'll get into this React Query demo folder, and in here, if I want to create the React application, I have to do npx create react app, and I'll have to name it whatever I want, but first let's name it React Query app, and then I can use whatever template I want. So for this version of React, I'm going to be using TypeScript. So there is no difference. There is not much difference between JavaScript and TypeScript. At TypeScript, we just deal with the types and all that. That's what I love to use. So if you guys are not familiar with TypeScript and don't want to work with that, you can also do the same things in JavaScript as well. And also I'll explain what or the extra things that I am doing in TypeScript. So that will just give you a hand on as well. So don't worry about that. So I'll use that TypeScript template for that. TypeScript, and then I'll just hit enter, and it will start installing my application. So yeah, my installation is done, and now I can just get to my application directory that's called React Query app. I'll just get into this, and you can already see that I'm on the master branch if you're already using Git. But yeah, we're not going to be using GitHub over here or Git tooling over here, so don't worry about that as well. We'll just open our VS Code, and it will open this project for us. So yeah, you can see all of the node modules over here, the public directory, we have the index.html, the logo and all that, and also you can see the different source files, the app file and all that stuff. Before getting into that, I'll just run my application. I'll just do npm start, and it should work. Yeah, you can see that our application is running now. So this is our first React.js application. We are done with the we are almost done with the project setup over here. But let's do some cleanup and get rid of this logo and some extra things over here. So for first thing first, I'll get rid of these test files. I'll get rid of the app.css. I don't need this, and also I'll get rid of all of this code, and I'll just do hello world, and I'll get rid of this logo as well, and out.css as well because I deleted the file. And over here this should be fine, and I don't need this logo anymore. I'll delete it, and boom, we have the hello world over here ready now. So yeah, this is how it works. So yeah, we have our first hello world React application running with us. Next thing that we want to do is basically install the React query. So let me just go to React query npm. I can just get here. I'll just copy this, install npm I React query, which means npm install. So using npm, I'll install the React query dependency. I'll just paste it over here. Sorry, wrong thing. So npm install React query. Yep, so the app is installed now. The React query is installed now. So now I can close this tab and I'll get to my application code over here. And what we can do is basically make our first call. First thing first, I'll do a use effect over here. And I'll paste this code over here. So basically fetch is a native JavaScript function, and it basically make a request to this URL, and it gets you the data and a JSON format, and it will just console log the format. If you're not familiar with use effect and you don't know what use effect does, so basically it's a hook that tells React that, hey, this component need to do, or do something after this component is rendered. So once this component is rendered, I want to make a fetch call, or I want to call an API, and I want to return some data from this. So this is what I want to do in this use effect function, and it will do the job for me. So once I save this file, and I'll go to my React application and inspect, because we're console logging the data. So we'll see some data over here. You can see completed false, and you can see the ID, you can see the title, you can see the user ID. So that is basically returned from the API call. So if I just refresh this page again, you can see this is the request that we're making to the JSON placeholder API, and we're getting the first to do from here. So you can see the response over here, and you can also see this in the console log. So yeah, we made our first API call from our React application. Yeah, that's really nice. What if I want to make this call using the React query? So for that, we need to do some extra configuration. So first of all, what I need to do is I have to go to the where index or the root file, and I have to import some things first. I'll do it from React query, and I'll do query client. So I'll import the query client from here, and also I need a second thing that's basically the provider, query client provider, and I'll just create another variable and I'll call it client, and basically we declare it like this. And I need to create the provider. I need to pass the client to the query client provider basically. So it takes a property that is called client. You can see over here when I click this, and I need to pass this client to this one. So this basically manages the state in your application. So basically the APIs are basically the root of our application. So that's where we want the state of this React query to be held. After the configuration, what we can do now is we can wrap this fetch call within our useQuery call. So first of all, let's say we need some things from here, from the React query over here as well. So we will do React query, and in here we will just make use of useQuery. Okay, and instead of doing it here, I can create my own hook or outside of this function, and I can call it anything. For example, we are getting the to-dos over here, so I'll say, okay, use to-do. Okay, I'll call this hook I use to-do, and what I can do over here is I'll declare a variable, but I'll have to destructure some properties from this function, and I'll do useQuery. So basically the first parameter that the useQuery takes is the key. So we'll specify a key over here. So since we are getting the to-dos, and so we'll name it to-dos. We can also specify multiple keys over here. So based on the information we have, for example, we want to call it to-dos, and also based on the ID we want to save or store the response of each to-do, and that on the specific key. So basically the ID should be here. So I'll be passing an ID over here that is basically of type number. So this is basically what TypeScript does. So basically whatever parameter we are passing, we are specifying the type of that parameter. So it's basically this function or this hook is expecting a number, ID of type number. So I'm combining this here. And then the second argument is basically, or the second parameter is basically the callback function that we need to specify. And in this callback function, we have to make use of this. We'll just put it here. Okay, and we will have to return it. And so basically it will return a promise because we're not awaiting this fetch call, and we are just returning the fetch call by itself. So it will return a promise, and we are converting the response to JSON first, and then we are console logging it. But over here we'll just return it like that. So I think I don't even need to do this over here. So I think that's all. And there are some configurations that we can pass as a third parameter, but for now we won't do this, and I'll show you why we need those configurations. But yeah, let's do it like this for now. So the parameter that I can destructure from this useQuery are basically these. If in some case we have error, then I can access this. And this is error basically as a Boolean value, and just returns true or false based on the status of the API call, if it is failed or succeeded. So if there is any error, then it will be true, otherwise it will be false all the time. The second one is loading. So as loading is basically the state of this API call. So if for example, if the component is rendered already and the API call is made, but it's still waiting for the data to be fetched, and it's still waiting for the response to be made, then this state is as loading. So if you want to get the data, basically, then we have to destructure the data parameter from here. And all we need to do is just return this data over here. But we can call this data or to do, and that's it. And we need to use this use to do hook in the app over here. So all we can do is just make use of this. So its error is loading, and to do it's basically returned from this hook itself, and we no longer need the use effect over here, and we can make use of this. For now we are not destructuring this, and we will say if is loading. If the call is made but it's still loading the data, then I'll just return a div or a JSX that will say loading, and I'll just make it h1 so that it looks a bit bigger. And if we have the data over here, then we'll just console log the data, the to-do data. So let's just go to the browser and see how it really works. So for now, we'll just clear it and I'll just refresh my page. You can see a small glitch over here. You can see the loading state first, and then you see the hello world. Let's just go to the network tab and just add some throttling over here. We'll make it a slow 3G. I'll refresh it. It will take a bit of time, but you will be able to see what I mean. You can see the request is made and now the data is loading first, and then we have the hello world because the data is loaded now, and now we have our to-dos over here. So this is how it really works. So now let's just access this data and print it. So we have these 4 properties and I'll just quickly copy them and I'll just put them here for ease. So we will say, okay, there is this task number, okay, and that is basically the to-do.id, and then we have title, and then it's basically to-do.title, and then we have the user ID, but I think we don't need that. Those information should be enough. And when I save it, yep, there is one thing more. I have to wrap it in a fragment. I'll indent it just to make it look better. Yeah, I'll save it. And I'll clean this and I'll just refresh. I'll just remove the throttling over here. No throttling, please. And I'll refresh again. And you can see we have the loading state, and then you see task number 1, and then we have the title of the task. When we pass another ID to this, for example, we pass ID2 to this. But yeah, sorry. One thing that I forgot over here, I just have to make it dynamic. So I'll get rid of that. I'll add backticks and I'll add the ID over here. I'll save this, refresh. It's already refreshed by itself, so I don't need to do that myself. So you can see the task ID is now in 2, and then the data is over here. So yeah, this is how we use React Query, and you've seen that how easy it is and what different status it gives us, and we have the loading state, and then based on that we can decide which components to show. We'll do a more practical example on that, but first it was just a first call and use of React Query. So that's how we do it. So I hope you have learned something new from this lecture, and please make sure to subscribe to the channel and share the video. And until that, I'll see you in the next lecture.